Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty leagues, PPR leagues, IDP leagues, even daily fantasy football leagues. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Marcus Vargas, and today, as always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. Of course, football is the topic, but today I want to start off, well, of course, we're talking football, but something a bit more political. I want to start off talking about the Washington Redskins. Now, if you haven't heard, the Redskins, clearly are under fire. I mean, I feel, the franchise is not the best franchise to ever exist. I will say that here and now. But as you may or may not know, the Washington Redskins football team, the name is actually one that's very insensitive and, quite frankly, just racist. This has been an issue for a while now. This is nothing new. I do want to point that out. I want to actually, comment because, with it all, coming out now recently, the way it has, it sort of feels like this might be something that, oh wow, no, we've always known this to be, the case about their name. There was an ad run, I think a few Super Bowls ago. There was an ad run about this, where there was a bunch of Native Americans and they were saying, what tribe they're from or what their culture was, et cetera, et cetera. And, they're saying, I'm this and I'm this and I'm this. But the one thing I'm not is a Redskin. And it was actually a very powerful ad. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was super, super cool. I thought it was super strong. It was very nice to see, publicly and, of course, on a stage like that. I believe it was during the Super Bowl. Off the top of my head, it might have been a primetime game. I believe it was a Super Bowl, though. Anyway, it was a very powerful ad that they ran. It was great. I thought, maybe, this might have them make a change, and they never made the change. And it was very saddening because, it sucks that something has to get to this point where I feel like, because this is all part of the, George Floyd, the incident and, the subsequent events after that. And this is all part of that, right? So it does suck that a man had to lose his life for all these dominoes to, go into place. And then for, something like this to, be set in motion, the name change. But I am glad it is happening in the first place. And, people are saying this could, they could change their name as soon as the next season. Of course, if the next season happens. Which to me is awesome. The sooner the better. And honestly, if they do it right now, as soon as possible, it actually shows that they mean business. It's not just for, they're not just going to say, okay, we'll change it, but this, that, and the third. Who cares about rebranding? Actually, this could be a wonderful opportunity for the Washington Redskins to become a whole new franchise and sort of welcome a new era. I'm not saying... what I was going to say before I got on that point actually was, don't tell me, all the rebranding, all the merch that they have with the, that logo and the name on it, they're going to have to change all that. No, it doesn't matter. The name is wrong. It's always been wrong. Right. And I'm not even going to get into the billion analogies that I could make or comparisons that I could make about, why the Redskins is wrong. You should just know. And I'm glad that they're going to, be reviewing the name and then possibly change it. I actually really, really liked, Dwayne Haskins came up with a suggestion, which, hold on, I actually wanted to comment on that because I thought that was, I thought it was kind of interesting, and actually I really liked it because, he's a quarterback, didn't have the greatest season, but I like he's sort of taking that, having a voice on his team. He thinks the Washington Redskins name should be the Washington Redtails. And I mean, that was in a tweet thing. He said, and he made sure to clarify, if we're going to change the name. Washington Redtails has kind of a nice ring to it. And I think it's pretty interesting because the Washington Redtails, I believe, refers to a group of black fighter pilots during World War II who went by, their squad was known as the Redtails. So I think that'd be pretty cool. Honestly, it would be great for this time period. This political climate. It'd be, great to recognize, a brave group of black individuals that, fought for this country. I think it'd be really, really dope. And I'm going to say here, I think it'd be great for the league. The NFL has a notorious reputation of not being, all inclusive or sensitive when it comes to race. I mean, if you think that, they shouldn't change their name, then there's a fundamental issue with the way you're thinking. It's not just, you can't just sit here and say that, but it's the tradition and this is how it's been, because that doesn't mean that it's right. Just because, we have to remember that, segregation was legal at one point, right? Being racist was legal. People were allowed to own slaves at some point. That doesn't mean it's right, just because that's the way that it's been done. And I'll tell you what, it would be really, really dope. I've seen some pictures of some, people, redesigning the team and the logo, to look like sort of like a fighter jets logo, sort of, there's one here where it looks like you could literally plaster this on a fighter jet and it'd be the logo for that fighter group. It's super cool. The font's cool. The colors still remain very similar. And I think it would be a really, really cool rebranding, for them, because you're recognizing, Tuskegee Airmen who were, first African American, military pilots. So I think it's really cool. But, if they come up with a different name, I hope it's much better than the Redtails, because that right now definitely getting a lot of traction. Super, super cool idea. Dwayne Haskins, that was a dope idea. I really, really think that is something that's possible. But just to add another comment onto this, it is surprising. I can't say that it's surprising that the name Redskin has lasted so long. And it is sad, right? Because it just shows how much, Native Americans have been ignored in this country forever, right? Because it is a racial slur. To call someone a Redskin is a racial slur. And I feel like, had the racial slur been about, several other minority groups or even, majority groups, then that would have never been able to, never been allowed, right? And so it just, it sucks to see, and it sucks, and I'm guilty of this too, just turning that blind eye, because those in power weren't changing it, just sort of letting that slide. It is unfortunate for so long, because there are a lot of people who are offended by that name, and I'm sure that there are Native American fans of the NFL who hate that that's, a name of a team. They might be really big fans of the NFL and, have to sort of deal with that. But I'm really, really glad that this is a thing. And while we're on this topic, I want to talk about the NFL playing the Black National Anthem before Week 1 games. The Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. They're going to be playing it before each Week 1 game, and then I believe they're going to be playing, the United States National Anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because there has been backlash to this idea, and it is just, again, I can't say that I'm surprised. But I am a little bit surprised because at this point in time, it's, as many people have commented on, the world's been coming together in ways that honestly has really impressed me, has moved me, that I think is very powerful, right? But of course, there's still that other side on those other groups who don't care, who are part of the problem, who are, what we are protesting against, what we are standing up against. And those are the type of people who have problems with the NFL playing the Black National Anthem. And I mean, it's just unfortunate. It's just like, if any of you are into combat sports, right, and a boxer or a fighter, comes out. They're, one's Mexican and one's, from the United States. They play each national anthem, and or they sing each national anthem, and it's sort of. And this is specific. I'm thinking, when I've said this, I'm thinking, I'm a big Canelo Alvarez fan. If any of you guys watch boxing, they sing the Mexican national anthem and his opponent's, national anthem as well. Imagine saying, Canelo's a champ. He's gonna get his national anthem, but his opponent can't. I mean, it just feels so weird, and it's not exactly the same. But I'm just trying to say, people think that they should just be playing the United States national anthem and that's it. The point of this is to, recognize all the black athletes that make the NFL what it is. Listen, sorry if you don't like this. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. If you don't like this, you're a terrible person. But black people have made the NFL what it is today, right? It's dominated by great athletes, who are black. So, you can't just sit here and say that they don't deserve, to be acknowledged. With a song, you can't, take I can't imagine the song's any longer than 2 or 3 minutes, maybe. And so it's just, you just have these people just have the wrong mindset. They also announced that they plan to honor the victims of police brutality. Apparently, they're going to be able to do this, through decals, maybe stitchings on jerseys, and apparently in the week 1 broadcast, there's going to be educational PSAs about the victims and their families, which I think is really, really cool. This is like really dope to see. If you're not a fan of this, then you're not a fan of football, because, this is it's a huge platform, and this is what, things like the NFL should be used for. We don't have to separate everything about football from our regular lives. I understand that football and sports in general, they're an escape from your daily routine or your daily life, and it's, great entertainment. But there are human beings playing the sport. These are real people. These are people affected by what goes on in the world. So they should be allowed, and the NFL as an organization should protest against things that are wrong and against humans, against humanity. So I urge you, if you're feeling iffy about this, if you're feeling uneasy or unsettled or weird or wrong about the NFL's decision to play the Black National Anthem, I don't. What's wrong with you? And I'm not saying, this is great. This is what the NFL, exactly what they need to do. Nothing more. No, that's not true. But I think that at least they're trying. So it's not just about we're gonna play this song and everything's kumbaya, we'll hold hands. Of course they're gonna do more, but I like that this is it feels like this is part of a change. This is part of a sort of a movement. So I really, really like this. It's just it does concern me to see people giving backlash, and to the people who don't necessarily care for this or say this nobody asked for this. Especially, if you're African American or black, or you consider yourself black, I would urge you to just be more open-minded and to sort of see why the NFL made this decision. Why, there are a lot of African Americans or black people who are supporting this. See why it's sort of a symbolic gesture. Now, about the Star Spangled Banner, there have been, I have read and heard many times that the Star Spangled Banner was actually written by someone who owned slaves. And there's racist undertones in the lyrics, which is very, very interesting to me. So it's kind of interesting to sort of think about playing, what's considered the Black National Anthem and then playing the Star Spangled Banner, which apparently, of course, I'd have to fact check this. I don't want to say I'm not going to, I'm never on here, it's just a sidebar. Usually when I say stuff on here, if I'm not too sure, I will, let you know. I don't just like to, sort of just drop hot takes out there without, baseless hot takes. But anyway. Not too sure, but I'm pretty sure the person who wrote the Star Spangled Banner did own slaves. So that it's just an interesting dichotomy. Of course, there's no malintent there. It's a Star Spangled Banner. We play it all the time, but it's just kind of ironic. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to all of the players who protest, all of the players who, take a knee. I'm looking forward to all the coverage. I know there's people who are dreading it. I can't wait because, these players are using their platform to speak up for social justice. This is, like I said before, these are not political issues. These are human rights issues. These are human issues. This is morality. This is about, the essence of being a human being and caring for other human beings, So, these are things that, you gotta like to see, and I understand, people don't want, I can understand why, I guess, people are like, I need this escape. I don't want the drama or struggles of the real world, sort of being embedded in, the sports, but it will be, and it has to be for things to change. So you just got to deal with it. But like I said, I'm a big fan of the NFL's proposal. I really, really like what they're doing. I like that they're taking sort of these baby steps to sort of signal the change and a new era. But with that, guys, we're going to move into our first break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the new NFL league year and coronavirus, because things are getting interesting, I guess you could say. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back after this short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty there, guys. Welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. We just got done talking about the Redskins, their whole situation with their racist name, whether they'll change it or not. Hopefully they do. We'll see what happens. Seems pretty likely. But anyway, on to the next topic. I want to talk about the NFL and coronavirus right now, because you may or may not know, the coronavirus and COVID-19, to be exact, is still a problem. It is still a very, very significant problem that seemingly only the United States is still having a very, very hard time trying to grasp or get settled. A lot of countries have seen their cases significantly dip, while we have seen some states have record, new cases. So it's very, very concerning. Since this whole thing started, I've been on this show. I've expressed my concern and, sort of, expressed how many times, I've told you guys, stay safe, keep social distancing, don't be irresponsible, blah, 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 whatever. Not here to talk about that. Here to talk about how it affects the league. Now, the NFLPA doesn't want any preseason games. Now, it's already been, the whole, two preseason games thing has already been taken into effect. And so, it's already been short. The preseason's already been shortened to 2 games. And now, basically, the NFLPA is trying to get the NFL to cancel all preseason games, because of the coronavirus. Now, I don't know what to think here, right? Because, the fan in me of course, want there to be multiple preseason games. And I'm a fan of football, so honestly, yes, the preseason doesn't matter. Sometimes, actually, a lot of times it really sucks and is boring. But I just enjoy football. So, of course, the football fan in me wants there to be as many preseason games as possible, especially, with this drought from sports. But, I don't mind it being shortened to 2 games. Now, if it needs to be, if it gets shortened to 0 games, will I be sad? Yes. But will I ultimately, throw a fit about it? No. At the end of the day, the main concern here we should be acting as if coronavirus is still brand new. And it's still a huge concern, and that it's, super highly contagious as it is, and I just wish that the hype, I shouldn't call it hype, the panic, that filled people and the caution that people were taking when the coronavirus, had first surged in the U.S. and things just everything was just shutting down, how crazy safe people were with the disinfecting and the gloves and the masks, and you didn't see all these people fighting about, putting masks on in public and making it a political thing when it's a human rights thing. And, it just, I wish that was still, the sort of energy behind the coronavirus pandemic, because, with the energy not being that, that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now, with a lot of things reopening, people going out, people going, out to eat, going to the beaches, going on vacations, traveling more, et cetera, et cetera. The concern that, that there might not be a NFL 2020 season is certainly getting more and more real as time passes on. This Packers CEO, he recently had a statement, saying, time is no longer on our side, basically, where, basically just saying, there are going to be a lot of tough decisions ahead, and, we might not have an NFL 2020 season, which would be absolutely devastating. Should that happen, well, for one, I don't know what would happen, how we would proceed here, at least at the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast with no fantasy football. That would be absolutely terrible. It'd be terrible for a lot of reasons, but, of course, because we've been without sports for so long, and the NFL season is just absolutely electric. To not have that would be a severe disappointment. But the NFL did release, I was glad to see, guidelines for, testing a player if they've come in contact and what they should be doing. And, there were murmurings about possibly fining players, if they, break coronavirus protocol, which I think is really, really cool. Back when this guy, why am I blanking on his name? Dak Prescott had the party with Ezekiel Elliott. I was saying, there needs to be some sort of punishment for these guys. There needs to be, something to fear. Because, they're just going to keep doing this with no sort of suspension or fine looming. If they don't care about the coronavirus and they want to throw their parties and they know it's not going to affect their job, then they're going to keep doing it. And so, it's nice to see that, at least that there were murmurings about, possibly, fining players. One source told ESPN that players were told if they engage in reckless behavior, away from, going to restaurants, being out in public, not social distancing, using like Uber, Lyft, ride sharing services. That's actually the quote from ESPN there. They could be punished. And so, I like that a lot because, it's not just them that they're putting in danger, that, they're putting their families in danger, they're putting their teammates in danger, the families of their teammates. And so, I like this, and I really, really hope that these fines are significant, hefty, and steep. I know that was a bit redundant, but I just want to get that point across. They need to be huge. So that these players are really discouraged from, they're rich. These players are rich. So, finding them, $50,000 is chump change to most of these players, right? So, or to a lot of these players. I know to a lot of players, that's not just chump change, but, it needs to be very, very significant. Now, of course, we're not trying to put someone, on the streets and make them homeless, but, for sure, get the message across that, you're serious about this. Now, it could be based on their salary. Who knows? But like I said, I'm really, really proud of this because, I thought before, the reason why Zeke and Dak, they were just going to parties and not caring was because there was no punishment. They just wanted to do what they wanted to do. Of course, it was a horrible look for them because it happened on multiple occasions. Dak Prescott, seen not really practicing the social distancing, and then, Ezekiel Elliott, turns out testing positive for the coronavirus. It really hasn't been a good look for America's team, which you would hope would be the, what is it? I'm not saying you would hope they would be. They are the most valuable sports franchise in the world. And so you would hope that they would be the sort of role models for everyone else. And as of right now, they're not really being role models for anyone. But just to get touched back, it took a huge detour, but we're back on the path now. Just to get back to the main point here, I fully expect there to be 0 preseason games. Right now, the NFL and the NFLPA aren't necessarily on the same page, but with the way things have gone and the way things are going and looking in the United States right now, it just feels like even if the coronavirus and COVID things, they start to get better, and I'm not talking about the coronavirus, COVID, same thing, not saying it's two different things, but even if they were to get better, I feel like out of precaution, the NFL is going to just ixnay all of those preseason games that a lot of people don't care to watch anyway. And so it's very difficult. It's a difficult idea to grasp because, I've been watching football a very long time, and, in my life I haven't had to deal with there not being an NFL season, and so that would be quite the shocker, especially because I'm such a big fan of not only my team, I've said this before, but of, football in general. And the NFLPA unanimously has already voted that they don't want these preseason games. Like, it's legit. They're serious about it. They're just trying to get the NFL on the same page. It's a very, very real possibility, and it's going to be a concern for teams for sure because, yes, we don't care about the preseason as fans because the entertainment level is very low, but a lot of these teams definitely care about the preseason and getting their rookies and vets and depth players on the field to see what they can do. So cutting preseason games is certainly going to be detrimental to a team and their development. Also, they've been talking about having smaller rosters during the preseason, and not having the as big of a roster before final roster cuts, getting to the 52. That affects a lot because the less people you can take on, the less chance you are of finding that stud or finding that project player, developmental player. So it's tough. You get your eyes on less players. And so, this coronavirus, while, these things are sort of small in scope, they are affecting these teams on how the season is going to play out. Now, without any preseason games, remember too, these guys are just going straight into the real deal action. I know a lot of guys, might not even play in the preseason games, but for a lot, it's good to, sort of get out there, and get used to the contact and the, just being out there on the football field. I know a lot of people argue against playing in the preseason for that reason, that you don't want your players to get injured, but I think the players should at least be playing at least a quarter, just to get back accustomed to being on the football field, taking a hit or two, or just having that adrenaline surge through your body, to be out there moving and throwing and running around, sprinting at full speed, game speed. Because they've just been practicing for a while, but it's different. You're practicing against the same team all the time. It's your friends and your buddies, and you guys have this chemistry, but playing against another team, there's nothing like that, right? So, I think the preseason is helpful. Cutting it, though, I have no problem with. I understand, the cons to it, but, 4 preseason games wasn't necessary before the pandemic. And it's definitely not necessary now that we are, going through this whole thing. So, it's interesting. It's sort of scary. It's uncharted territory. And so I'm at a loss for words, to be honest with you guys, because we've never had to deal with something like this, right? The world is sort of at a standstill globally, right? And so it is a it is a weird time. It is quite, the trying times that we're in right now. But it is what it is, and we have to proceed accordingly. We don't want to rush into these things and make things ultimately worse, right? Just for a couple weeks of the NFL, but we don't do things properly, and then the rest of the season has to get canceled. I'd much rather, much rather would have things go in the manner of, we push the season back, we don't start when we usually start, but we have a full season, right? You get a full 16, 17 weeks of football, and I would hate to have a couple weeks and then, coronavirus positive tests are popping up everywhere and the season has to get canceled, right? So that'd be very, very unfortunate. And if that means you can't have fans at games, we need fake fan noises and screams and the Chiefs chant, the chopping the axe, and that all has to get, edited in, the chants that they do, well, so be it, right? So, they got the Duval and the Who Days and the Who Dats and the What So's and the What Fours, hey, doesn't matter to me. As long as we get to watch football, I think the fans will be okay not going to the games as long as we get football. So, like I said, it is what it is. I think you guys don't be surprised if there's no preseason this year, in an effort to, prioritize the regular season. I think the main priority now is just, getting the regular season and postseason going. The preseason, if it has to get cut, it gets cut. But I think, every precaution that the NFL needs to take and the players need to take just to make sure that regular season gets started on time, take it. The world needs, or at least the United States, I know it's, not as popular around the world, but we need NFL football. We need it badly. I think it would be great for, not only for the entertainment value, but for the morale of this country. To be able to watch those highlights and your favorite athletes perform at a high level and take their stance against social justice, and to see those role models on that field doing what they do on the field and showing what they support off the field, it'd just be great. So with that, guys, we are going into our break, and of course when we get back, more GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. What'd you expect? Alright, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after this short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty guys, welcome back, and now we enter the third segment of the day. And guys, I want to do, sort of one of my, article analyses that I like to do here. Bucky Brooks recently came out with an article. He's talking about his top 5 starting fives of the NFL. And basically what he's saying is, after doing some film study, which teams have the best, excuse me, oh my goodness, which teams have the best, starting five at the skill positions. They're not necessarily, there's not a, sort of cookie cutter formula for all the teams, because some teams, he includes tight ends, some teams he does not. Some teams he has a bunch, multiple tight ends, some teams he doesn't. But I think this is interesting. I want to talk about it also from a fantasy football perspective. Now, to start off this list, I actually kind of, I do agree with this, even though I'm super biased towards my Chiefs. He lists the Cleveland Browns as the number one team here with RB Nick Chubb, RB Kareem Hunt, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Austin Hooper. Now, we did recently, hear about David Njoku requesting for a trade, which I may or may not talk about, in regards to Austin Hooper and the boost in his value that it brings. But they have a very, very solid roster. The Browns are a team that you certainly want to, you're going to want to target. If you don't get their top guys, Nick Chubb or Odell, you can certainly target Kareem Hunt, the secondary players at these skill positions because they're very solid. Jarvis Landry is a sure-handed receiver. Kareem Hunt, great overall running back, and he's going to be solid for fantasy football. He was solid for some guys last season, when he came off the suspension, hadn't played football in how long. He was still putting up some okay numbers for fantasy football as, sort of a flex kind of guy. So, Nick Chubb's the stud. Kareem Hunt, can put up some interesting numbers for you. I'm certainly going to be reliable in the next season. I think, with a full season under his belt, he's going to put up surprising numbers. Odell Beckham, I think he's going to bounce back and have a great season. Jarvis Landry is a great wide receiver too. Basically sort of a wide receiver 1A on that squad. 1B on that squad. And Austin Hooper, we saw what he did in Atlanta. Of course, I don't think it's going to be exactly the same. Kevin Stefanski runs the ball a lot. But he still, has opportunity to put up numbers. Now, at number 2 here, I can't bring myself to agree with this here because 3 of the 5 skill position players he has here play the same position. At the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, and Cameron Brate. Now, while the Tampa Bay Buccaneers boast what is arguably, the league's best wide receiver duo, I can't get myself to say that a, tight end trio is, lethal weaponry. I honestly, yes, in certain personnel packages, having those 3 tight ends out there, if, you had 1 running back, the 3 tight ends, and a wide receiver, yes, that's insane to have those 3 weapons there. Either one of them could go off or, go grab a touchdown. But I don't think that makes this team, sort of lethal, because how often are you going to run 3 tight end sets? And, we still have to see Rob Gronkowski get on the field and do it. Now, I'm not doubting him. I really am not doubting him. But I just think with the unprovenness of this team, the new quarterback, Tom Brady, of course, we still have to see what he has left in the tank. I think he's fine, but I just don't think that this group is diverse enough to put them in the, at least in the top 2 of, sort of the best starting 5, if you will. 3 of them are tight ends, which means 1 or 2 of these guys constantly is going to be off the field. So it's interesting. Of course, I think they're certainly going to be running 2 tight end sets more often because I can't even name the, sort of third wide receiver option on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because it's going to be the Chris Godwin and Mike Evans show for sure. And Gronk because of the chemistry that they have. So it's just, is there even a point for a third wide receiver? I'm not really sure. But I don't think they have the number 2, the second best starting 5 in the league. And for fantasy football guys, you're picking one of these tight ends. You're not going to be, and most people are going to be taking Gronk because of the chemistry he has with Tom Brady. Of course, this is not an offense loaded for fantasy football. You take Mike Evans, you take Chris Godwin first, you take Mike Evans after him, and then, you take Rob Gronkowski, and then, O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate are going to be undrafted or drafted very, very late as a backup tight end. So, not the best for fantasy football, not the best in the NFL, I don't think either. At number 3, the New Orleans Saints, which to me is very, very interesting because here he includes Taysom Hill. And if you look at this list, it's not that impressive. I like Alvin Kamara. I love Michael Thomas. But after this, Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook at tight end, and Taysom Hill. To me, that doesn't scream best starting 5. Taysom Hill is not even part of the starting 5 in skill positions. So he is kind of going against his own rules here. And I understand he can play all those skill positions, right? He can, he's Swiss Army knife. He can, be in the Wildcat. He can be a wide receiver. He can be a running back. He can do whatever. But I don't think that him alone, because who else do you put on this list here, makes this team part of, one of the top 5 lethal weapons. Because we're lethal 5, oh my gosh, I can't speak today, guys. One of the most lethal starting 5s. Alvin Kamara, of course, is a killer. Michael Thomas is a killer. But Michael Thomas is basically the only receiver on this team. So to even add Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook is kind of a joke. So to me, this is Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, and this team shouldn't even be in the top 5 because the team is Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara when you're watching the offense, right? Yes, Jared Cook, and I think Josh Hills is named the backup tight end. Yes, they get action every now and again, but the ball's not getting spread that much on this team, so I don't know if I agree with that one. But for fantasy football, they're very, very valuable players. Alvin Kamara is going to be a very solid running back next season. Michael Thomas is going to be Michael Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders, though, not going to do much. He didn't do much on the 49ers. Jared Cook, he'd be an okay pickup. I'm definitely not going to say not to draft him. He'd be definitely a solid pickup. He puts up some solid numbers. Taysom Hill, though, you're not drafting him. Okay, I mean, some people will take the chance on him. He does have, I'm pretty sure he has tight end capability. You can put him in a tight end or flex, I believe. But he's not going to be putting up, solid numbers on a consistent basis. So, like I said. At number 4 here, finally, we have my Kansas City Chiefs. And I would certainly put these guys above, the Saints and maybe even above the Buccaneers. You just bear with me here. Just listen. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I understand why it's down. Maybe this is why. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a rookie. We haven't seen him play. But Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, and Travis Kelce. I mean, Tyreek Hill is very underrated, and I think that's why you put the Chiefs sort of lower on this list. I think Tyreek Hill is certainly one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. I would maybe not top 5. He's very, very close to the top 5, because the way he takes the top off of a defense, how many defenders have to account for him, and how he can he can go up and get the ball for a small, speedy guy. He really doesn't get enough credit for how great of a receiver he is. And Sammy Watkins, you guys saw what he did in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And Mecole Hardman, who had a breakout season, who I think is going to be, of course, a more important featured part of his offense as time goes on. And Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football. You give me that, and I think certainly with that diverse cast, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, with the potential that he has, people talking, about him being, the second coming of Brian Westbrook, even better, I would certainly take that lineup over Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, and the 2 backup tight ends. That's just me. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but that is just me. I feel like, and of course, it depends on what kind of offense you're running, right? Because the Chiefs run that very specific offense for Patrick Mahomes with the super big arm, and they're perfect for him. The track speed, the explosiveness, the big plays, it's perfect for that kind of offense. But it is what it is. They're at number 4. This is going to be a very, very solid fantasy football. Travis Kelce is going to be a top tight end. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, is going to be a stud. Tyreek Hill going to be a great wide receiver for you to pick up. And Sammy Watkins or Mecole Hardman, that's going to be the tough one where I see either one of them going off in any game. But you can certainly play either one of those at your flex. So very, very useful for fantasy football. You sort of pick and choose at that point. Now, number 5. This one is very, very interesting. The Dallas Cowboys. Now, here he has Ezekiel Elliott, the backup running back Tony Pollard, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. Very, very solid. If you look at their wide receiving core, I think it's certainly one of the stronger ones in the league. If CeeDee Lamb comes in and he lives up to the hype that he had, this is going to be a very, very scary offensive unit. My one qualm with this is just adding a backup player, because Tony Pollard, while he is a solid player, has very good ability, he's a backup and he doesn't see much time on the field. So I get why Tony Pollard's included here. There's certainly people have to keep an eye out on him. He's not just some backup. He definitely gives that backfield a 1-2 punch. He certainly, is a good change of pace back, but it's just kind of interesting to think about, putting, backups in, your starting 5s category, because they don't even start. But It is what it is. I do agree with this here. I like this. The Dallas Cowboys have a very solid offense. These are all guys I see people drafting on come draft day. Ezekiel Elliott for sure. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb will all be drafted. I can almost guarantee that. And along with Dak Prescott, of course, because Dak Prescott has been a solid fantasy football quarterback. I know we love to hate him or hate on him. Me living in Philadelphia, it's sort of just in my blood at this point, even though I'm not even, the Eagles aren't even my diehard team. It's just sort of in the air at this point that you're supposed to hate the Cowboys. But the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a team like the Chiefs who are very, very solid for fantasy football. These are all people I could see you drafting and doing very well with. Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper as your RB and wide receiver 1s. Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 2, 3. Not in any particular order. And Tony Pollard could be an interesting flex play and a very, very interesting handcuff should Ezekiel Elliott get hurt. So stashing Tony Pollard is definitely going to be useful for you guys as well. Overall, I like the list. I have, like I said, some qualms with some certain things. I think, if your top 3 of your top 5 skill players play this, tight end position, I think that's sort of concerning. I think, the Buccaneers should have been rated much lower here. I think he took into account too much of Tom Brady, right? And, none of these lists included quarterbacks, right? So, of course, you don't let that sway your opinion, but it feels like having Tom Brady on the Buccaneers here certainly skyrocketed them up here. I think if Jameis Winston is still the quarterback, nobody's talking about the Buccaneers as much as they are now, or at least about the potency of that offense. So it's very interesting. I guess you put them here because you say Tom Brady can take advantage of all those weapons. But like I said, don't be surprised if the Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys offenses outperform the Saints, the Buccaneers, and even the Browns. The Browns are great on paper, but we've seen them be great on paper already, and them have a 6-10 season. But I think it's a new era in Cleveland with a new coach, new everything. I think it'll work out just fine. But with that, guys, we'll go into our final break, and right after our final segment. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back after this short break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. We are now in the final segment of today's show, and with the final segment, I want to talk about super duper Superman Cam Newton. Now, the reason I want to talk about Cam, I did touch on it before, those gosh darn Patriots, they got him. They got him for so cheap. Of course, good old Bill Belichick's going to do what good old Bill Belichick does, and sort of swiped him from, I guess not from underneath anyone's nose because nobody seemed to want him. But Cam Newton on the Patriots, I have to say, makes them the favorite to win the AFC East. Because the division is so weak. And I'm not going to say it makes them a huge favorite. I think it makes them a very, very slim favorite to win the NFC East because Cam has a lot to prove. Cam is the only quarterback in this division left with, Super Bowl experience and an MVP. he's clearly the best quarterback in the division, I think, if he's playing at his best. And if he can get back to that form, the Patriots, even with the lack of weapons, yes, I think can sort of bounce back. They haven't really even slumped yet, but it felt like the Patriots, in the playoffs last season felt sort of fluky, felt weird. It felt like they didn't belong there, and the Titans showed us that. But it feels like, they're going to come back strong. It's not going to be, weak offensive performances. It's absolute dominant defenses. And one very, very interesting stat, with the New England Patriots having signed Cam Newton, he was the 2015 NFL MVP. They're just the 6th team in NFL history to add a former MVP QB to its roster after making the playoffs the prior season. All 5 of the teams that have done this in the past have made the postseason after bringing in that MVP. So it's very, very interesting to think about. History favors the Patriots, and basically history is telling you that the Patriots are making playoffs. Just for some examples, when the Chiefs brought in Joe Montana, they went 11-5. When the Vikings brought in Brett Favre, they went 12-4. When the Broncos brought Peyton Manning, they went 13-3. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that's definitely some interesting company to be in. So every team made the playoffs. One team actually went on to win the Super Bowl. That was the 1972 Dolphins. Very, very interesting stuff. That was the undefeated Dolphins team. I think right now they sort of have to be the favorites just because they have the best quarterback. And quarterback play is very, very important, guys. And I understand, you do need a defense. The Chiefs have shown me that time and time again. At this we're getting into a point into a league where we're at that point in the league where high-powered offenses, that's the name of the game. And having a solid quarterback is the name of the game. You can't just... The Patriots had an outstanding defense last season. Phenomenal defense. What happened, though? They got trampled by a team who could hold the ball for a while, run it down your throat, and sort of, just hold you from scoring because your offense is just, can't get separation with the wide receivers, and the run game wasn't strong enough. I know people like to say defense wins championships, but let me tell you something, man. The offense does have to go out there, 1, take care of the ball, and 2, put up points. If you're in the Super Bowl, you're in the Super Bowl against another team that also belongs in the Super Bowl. So you're not just going to go expect this guy to throw pick sixes all game, and that's how you're going to score with your defense and win games, right? So the whole defense wins championships thing, I don't necessarily like, because guess what wins you a game? Points. Guess who scores the most points? The offense, right? And so, in its most basic form, offenses win championships, not defenses. So I understand, yes, you have to, not let the opponent outscore you, but at the same time, you have to outscore your opponent. So it's very, very interesting to think about. Anyway, another, crazy segue. My mind is just all over the place today, guys. Come on, keep me on track. Yes, the Patriots, if I had to re-rank the AFC East right now, and this is just how I'm feeling, I'm going to put, everything is so close. Patriots first, Dolphins or the Bills second. I can't decide. I think they're tied there. I guess, you know what? I want to give this take here. I'm saying the Dolphins finish second. The Bills are third, and the Jets are last. And what's crazy? When those words come out of my mouth, I can just see them being dead wrong, because this division is so close. It is such a toss up. You could give me any order, and I feel like you have valid arguments for all that. You could tell me Jets first, Bills second, Dolphins third, Patriots last, and I wouldn't argue that much with you, right? Because at the end of the day, Cam has to stay healthy. Cam has to mesh well with Bill Belichick. Cam has to do well with not that many weapons. Receivers and running backs that people were calling scrubs, washed up, slow, can't get separation, always dropping balls. It's very, very interesting. That's very, very interesting. More interesting, though, is that, Tom Brady, being on another team, has to outperform Cam Newton at this point, because it's sort of now becoming, who's going to be the better QB between Tom Brady and Cam Newton, because when Jarrett Stidham was going to be the quarterback for the New England Patriots, nobody was saying or expecting much from him. But now that they have the big name, the superstar power of Cam Newton, a guy who's been elite, a guy who was an MVP, I'll say it a billion times. Now you start to, wonder, what could this offense be like? What could this offense have been missing, at least last season, when they fell short because of the offensive woes? What could Bill Belichick do with a new shiny toy? The new Ferrari, taking it for a spin. It's very, very interesting. And now I wish, I wish they were in the same division, because that would have been great. Cam's former team is in the same division as Tom Brady now, but that doesn't matter anymore. But it's certainly going to be interesting, and it's certainly going to be interesting to watch now, because to be honest, I didn't think that the Patriots were going to make the playoffs. If I'm being honest with you guys, I thought next season it was definitely going to be sort of a rebuilding or tanking sort of year, and then you see them draft. Everybody's talking about them tanking for Trevor Lawrence, and I think before getting Cam Newton, that was everybody was accepting that, and unfortunately, the Buccaneers don't play the Patriots, so we won't be able to see Tom Brady face off against Bill Belichick next season, but I think it's going to be a big storyline. Everyone wants to know who's going to make the next Super Bowl or win the next Super Bowl first, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady. And honestly, I will say, I'm not, I'm a guy, like I've said before, I don't count GOAT discussions, with Super Bowl rings and all that stuff. But this one will certainly be an interesting Super Bowl chase, because whoever does it first will most likely solidify their position as the main reason that the Patriots were winning all those Super Bowls. And now it doesn't even really make any sense, but that is how we work in this society and in our football communities. That's the ultimate value, is the championship ring, the Super Bowl ring. So should Bill Belichick go do it with Cam? Honestly, to me, I'm just going to give my opinion here. Bill Belichick next season going to win a Super Bowl with Cam Newton in this loaded AFC, which I believe, I do believe that is one of the reasons Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers. Yes, there were those other great reasons of being closer to his son, the weather's great, but you cannot tell me that, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, you can't tell me that they don't intimidate Tom Brady at this stage in his career, to see what they're doing and to see what they can do to his defenses, because he saw them both. He played them both last season. He lost to them both. The AFC is loaded. So back on track, if Bill Belichick was to go and make a Super Bowl, even just to make it, means that he would have had to go through the Ravens and the Chiefs, at least one of them at some point, would be a bigger feat than Tom Brady and the Buccaneers making it to the Super Bowl. So Bill Belichick has a lot less pressure, I think, than Tom Brady, because it's much more difficult for him at this point. At this point, it almost seems easy because the Buccaneers have the offensive weapons that they have. Their defense is, solid. It's definitely not a bad defense. You have to remember, guys, this defense got no rest. Their quarterback was throwing picks left and right. There were games with 3+. Even I think there was a game with 5 interceptions. And even if he's not throwing 5 interceptions, there were games where he had interceptions and a fumble or two. So Jameis Winston was absolutely a turnover machine. Tired out his defense, man. It made it almost impossible for them to win games. And surprisingly, they did win several games. But like I said, Tom Brady has the much easier road to the Super Bowl, I believe, than Bill Belichick. And I think, should Bill Belichick make it even without winning before him, he will solidify. He doesn't even need to solidify his legacy, but that position where it's sort of, that Patriots' success was because of Bill, not because of Tom. And no matter what you think, I'm not trying to say, Tom's a scrub by any means. I'm not trying to, diss his skills or say he's not a good quarterback. But there are arguments that he's a system quarterback. So, I mean, hey, Tom even just playing next season is going to be putting a lot on the line because he's trying to show, it's not that easy. And we'll see it now. Because now we'll see a guy who people think is a capable quarterback, Cam Newton, as long as he's healthy, him in a Bill Belichick system. And if, he stinks, it's going to be interesting. Well, I guess even if he stinks, though, the system is going to be a bit different. They're going to be doing different things. Tom Brady sits in the pocket. Cam Newton's more mobile. Yeah, you got to kind of look at it like that. So it's not the exact same system, but Tom Brady going with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians likes to push the ball downfield, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see Tom Brady play next season. I'm hoping to see sort of, when Alex Smith played his final year in Kansas City before leaving to the Redskins, there was a revival. He had sort of a rebirth. He was throwing, I think he might have been the top ranked quarterback on deep balls that season. Highest completion percentage or something like that, or most touchdowns, I believe. He was very, very good throwing the deep ball. A guy who people called him Alex Checkdown Smith, or Captain Checkdown, whatever you want to call him. He was a very accurate quarterback, but he wasn't a guy who pushed the ball downfield. But in his last season with the Chiefs, people who knew it was his last season, Patrick Mahomes was waiting in the wings. He sort of saw a rebirth. So I think we might see that, not a rebirth of Tom Brady, but, sort of a, cause I guess he doesn't need to necessarily be reborn, but a revolution, so to say, because, in New England, there was a lot of check downs. There was a lot of dumping onto the running back. And I understand he is hyper efficient at these. I'm not saying that makes him a bad quarterback, but a lot of Tom Brady's throws were very short, run after catch, safe throws. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see him taking these shots with Chris Godwin, with Mike Evans. Very, very solid, deep threat kind of guys with Rob Gronkowski, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate. Very, very interesting to see. We'll see who comes out as the top dog at the running back position. But honestly, I can't wait to see this because, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Cam Newton, it's going to be great. I think it's all going to be great for fantasy football. If you're, thinking about drafting Cam Newton, I certainly would. As a, secondary quarterback. I wouldn't take him as a, my QB1, not right now at the moment. But I think taking Cam Newton and stashing him on your team is certainly something that you should be thinking about. Of course, I'm not saying, go ahead and do it, guaranteed 100% success rate. But Cam Newton is a guy with a lot of potential. We've seen him be an MVP. He is a guy that I will, if he is one of the only guys left late in the draft, and I need a second quarterback, because I'm a guy who drafts two quarterbacks. Cam Newton is certainly a guy I will be looking at. He broke my heart last season. I picked him up as my secondary quarterback last season, and he did, he broke my heart. But I'm a guy who gives second chances, so if Cam Newton is on the board late and you're someone who drafts two quarterbacks, look for Cam Newton. You're going to want to get the jump on him before anyone else, because if he returns to form, he's going to light up fantasy football scoreboards, guys, because he's Cam Newton. He's very solid, and he's playing under who a lot of people consider the greatest coach of all time. All right, now with that, guys, we're going to end our show for tonight. I want to thank you for listening to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And guys, I want to ask that you follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I want to ask that you leave a comment down below, leave a like, 5-star rating, of course, because, why would you leave anything else? Let us know what we're doing wrong, what we're doing well. Of course, keep it, PG, respectful, and constructive, because that helps us. It helps you, of course, have a, better hearing experience, and we appreciate it. So, guys, with that, I want to, say that I hope you guys stay safe. I hope you guys stay healthy. I hope you guys are staying sane inside the house all day, because I know these quarantine days are starting to get very, very long and very, very tough. So, like I said, guys, follow us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, GSMC_F football. And yeah, have a good night, guys. Stay safe, stay happy, and we'll see you here next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.